Imagine reincarnating in a world full of magical beasts, and you, who were incredibly unlucky, end up with an adorable and cute little turtle of the lowest class. But like a true Pokemon master, you'll make it evolve and have an overpowered beast. Without further ado, let's begin. The story starts by introducing our protagonist, Chung, who tells us that he reincarnated into this world more than a year ago. In this place, humanity has fought against monsters for centuries, and to defend themselves, they have formed spiritual contracts with magical beasts. Tito Cheng notices his classmates making a big fuss, and it turns out the examiner in charge of the spiritual contract day is a member of the Apocalypse Court, a very powerful individual. This makes the protagonist wonder why someone so important would be at his small Polaris Academy. The only explanation he can think of is that something special is about to happen. Still, he doesn't care, and the reason for that is he reincarnated as a weakling with no talents or abilities, and not even a system to assist him. Therefore, even if the Apocalypse Court is here to recruit, such an opportunity has nothing to do with him. To survive, the only thing left for him is to form a contract with a magical beast. Though his spiritual power is pathetic, the higher it is, the better the chances of contracting high-level beasts. Given all this, he has already resigned himself to the idea that greatness is not for him, and certainly, he is not the protagonist of this story. Suddenly, a man and a talking bird enter his classroom, and the bird orders them to quickly head to the campus. They all comply, of course. A few minutes later, Tito Cheng realizes it's time for the spiritual contract, and he notices that there are several magical beast eggs of different sizes and colors on the platform, waiting to meet their new owners. Suddenly, the examiner, named Chao, summons her fire phoenix. The majestic creature blesses everyone, slightly increasing their spiritual power. All the students thank her because it will help them awaken powerful beasts. Without further ado, Chao tells them to line up and take turns forming their contracts. She encourages them, saying the results will depend on their efforts. Back to Tito Cheng, we see he is last in line and hopes not to end up as a joke. The first to go is a boy named Leon. He sits on the platform and focuses on establishing a spiritual connection with one of the eggs. He finally succeeds, and one egg hatches, revealing a kind of hawk that flies out. Chao congratulates him for summoning a fierce beast. Everyone is stunned by this incredible feat, because it was an excellent beast. Magical beasts are divided into several ranks: the weakest, ornamental, the intermediate, fierce, and the best, divine. Leon is, of course, overjoyed with the result. Chao asks him to name the basic abilities of his beast. After some time, everyone else has gone, leaving only our protagonist. We see him focus on forming a spiritual contract, but several minutes pass, and nothing happens. He stands up and tells the examiner that he doesn't sense anything. She's surprised there are still people with such weak power. Being kind-hearted, she tells him to try touching the egg. Tito Cheng feels terrible because it's so humiliating, but he complies and notices a small egg. For some reason, as soon as he approaches it, the egg lights up and he touches it with his palm. To facilitate the spiritual connection, the examiner blesses him with her phoenix. Suddenly, the egg emits a powerful ray of light, leaving everyone astonished. Impacted by such power, they couldn't believe that this loser managed to acquire a first-level beast. We see how little by little, the egg begins to hatch, and a few seconds later, a small and cute little turtle emerges. Chao mentions that he has awakened an ornamental beast and asks him to tell her its abilities. His companions, who overheard, burst out laughing because that creature was pitiful. Tito Chen, upon analyzing it, falls into deep silence and then mentions that its only ability is defense. Chao is surprised because ornamental beasts usually have at least 2 abilities, but his doesn't. Our protagonist was aware that the ornamental class had limited strength, and with its defensive capacity, he wasn't even sure it could withstand a hit from a little girl. Even a chicken was stronger than it, and he began to despair over his bad luck. Suddenly, 3 small rats told him not to be pessimistic because his beast was defensive, and as they knew, The pain was shared between the pet and its owner, so he shouldn't worry. But they were saying it sarcastically and laughing behind his back. Tito-Chen knew there was nothing more to be done, but didn't blame the little creature at all. After a while, Chow congratulates everyone on their graduation and informs them that from now on, they will enter the Northern Combat Zone to train there. On behalf of the Apocalypse Tribunal, she wishes them good luck. Everyone starts murmuring, saying that place is very dangerous, and they couldn't believe they were being sent there as rookies. The BFU reassures them, saying they won't be sent to the front lines. Besides, there's only a small amount of danger. But if anyone is afraid, it's fine, and if anyone wants to desert, they can do so right now, though they'll have to leave their contracted beast. Our protagonist was aware that every year after winter, for 1 or 2 months, monsters entered a frenzied state, forming large hordes. And with Tortul's strength, it was practically like having a VIP ticket to meet St. Peter. It was way too soon for him to meet Jesus. So he was seriously considering quitting. Just as he was about to say so, a message welcomed him to the beast system and showed him Tortul's stats and abilities. He realized it had 6 points, and as if that weren't enough, it also displayed the levels and ranks of other magical beasts, such as Chow's Phoenix, which was level 50 and of ferocious rank. For the first time, our protagonist saw a ray of light in his new life. He knew that with this, he could make the little creature stronger, and to level it up quickly, he'd have to feed it well. The ideal place for that was in the Northern Zone. We see that he spends his 6 points on improving its defense further, which would give them a better chance of survival. Suddenly, a giant bird appears above them. The waifu asks them to get on because they will leave immediately. A few hours later, they arrive at the Imperial Army camp in the Northern Zone. We see how the student's teacher speaks with Commander Wang. He mentions that he trusts them, which is why he's leaving the students under their supervision. The protagonist, who overheard everything, understands that their job will be patrol duty. Commander Wang calls out 4 names, including Tito-Chen. He tells them that from now on they will be a group under the orders of Captain Jing. All of them acknowledge this. Captain Jing, without hesitation, tells them that during patrol duty, their only task is to ensure that no monster crosses the wall, even if it costs them their lives. He warns them that during this time, if any of them engage in fights for personal reasons, especially over a woman, he won't hesitate to throw them outside the wall to feed the monsters. Before departing, he orders them to get acquainted, since they will be a team from now on. Tito-Chen greets a blonde girl kindly, and it turns out she was the goddess of their school, named Liang. She, being very sweet, shakes his hand. The little rats notice this and become envious. After some time, Captain Jing tells the group that patrol duty is crucial for protecting the wall from monsters, and that they shouldn't be overconfident because the monsters can appear at any moment. They ask why he says that if the area is completely empty and they could easily detect them. He explains that monsters are skilled at hiding, especially during the frequent storms. That's why he advises them not to let their guard down and to keep their eyes wide open at all times. Nervously, they assure him they understand. Jing gives them another tip. Due to the intense storms, it's impossible to see their footprints, but the monster's scent doesn't fade. That can help them to flee or detect them better. The protagonist notices that the captain has stopped, and as soon as he looks in his direction, he shouts that there's a monster. The others, scared, ask where. Lian quickly points with his finger and yells at them to be careful because it's a snow leopard. Captain Jing takes the opportunity to tell them this will be their first test, and that he will only intervene if they are in danger. Curious, he asks who will be the brave group to start. We see a small group trembling with fear. But the waifu isn't fazed and goes to fight alongside her friend Kion, who is like a kind of raccoon, but is far from harmless because he has long, sharp claws. He injures the leopard's paw and tries to inflict more damage, but the creature evades the strike and fiercely lunges at the waifu to take her down. She has no time to flee, and even less so for anyone to reach her to defend her. Nervously, she doesn't know what to do. Captain Jing, observing the entire situation, knows it's time to intervene. But just as he's about to act, he notices someone else is already rushing to help her. It's obviously our protagonist. He throws what looks like a Pokeball, releasing the adorable Tortul, who flies at full speed, Fast and Furious style, arriving just in time to protect the waifu. Tortul activates his shell defense, sending the leopard flying to the other side. Unfortunately, both Tito Chen and Tortul are seriously injured in the process. As we know, the damage is shared between them. Chen, barely managing, picks Tortul up in his arms but can't take even a single step further. The captain watches the battle in awe. Yang, knowing it's all her fault, furiously orders Kian to finish off the horrible creature. He obeys and lands a fatal wound on the beast's belly. The creature, pained, flees quickly. The waifu, however, refuses to let it escape and tells Kian to follow and finish it off. But it's no use. The snow leopard is cunning and evades the attack, escaping again. Leon realizes it has gotten away. Suddenly, the other group members join the show. The boy sends his wind owl, and the girl sends her flower beast. The bird increases the flower's speed, and it uses its roots to completely bind the snow leopard. Leon shouts to An that it's now his turn. We see the little one take down the imposing creature effortlessly. The boy in the hat, named Fang, tells Leon that her pet is amazing because it only needed 2 attacks to take out the monster. Humble as ever, she replies yes, and fortunately, Kay is an attack beast. But because of her carelessness, Chen and his pet were injured. The purple-haired girl named Zru wonders if they'll be okay, considering that Chen's beast, which is ornamental grade, took a full hit from the snow leopard. We see the waifu slowly approach our protagonist, helping him up and thanking him and his beast for saving her. Tito Chen, in pain, asks her to let him rest for a bit. She apologizes again, feeling it's all her fault. Our protagonist tells her not to blame herself because, after all, he's the only one in the group with a defensive beast, and it was his duty to protect them. Suddenly, the system notifies him that the physical damage he's taken has been added to his current progress, which was at 1 out of 100. When the bar fills, he'll become immune to 20% of physical damage. After taking damage 1,000 times, it'll increase to 30% and so on. In essence, he'll gradually become immune to magical, spiritual, poisonous, and other attacks. While this is great because the damage won't affect him, he realizes that if he doesn't find a way to deal damage in a long battle, his opponent could simply defeat him. Nonetheless, he thanks the heavens for such a blessing. Leon, noticing he's lost in thought, worriedly asks if he feels very bad. Tito Chen, ever the Casanova, responds that he's honored to fight alongside such a goddess. The waifu blushes and tells him not to be silly. The other guys grow jealous because this fool is being hugged by such a goddess. Captain Jin interrupts and praises their exceptional performance. Despite having been with their beasts for only a short time, they fought so well that they even eliminated a monster. He points out that even someone with a ferocious grade beast couldn't have won alone. He emphasizes the importance of coordination and cooperation among everyone to defeat stronger opponents. He orders them to get to know each other well and work hard to become excellent beast tamers. Suddenly, he senses a strong presence in the distance and tells the group it's time for a rematch. The others wonder what he's talking about. Leon mentions that he read as a child that low-level monsters always travel in groups, so the snow leopard can't be alone. All of a sudden, they hear the howling of a large wolf pack approaching. Fang shouts that the snow leopard was part of the wolves' vanguard. Captain Jin agrees and, like a dog, starts drinking, mentioning the importance of teamwork, but above all, the need for a warrior's brave heart that doesn't fear the enemy. He wishes them luck. The group is in shock, frozen in place. The only one who steps forward like a true alpha male is Tito Chen. The waifu shouts that he's crazy and asks if he hasn't realized his wound hasn't healed. Our protagonist, unfazed, yells that he's the only one with a defensive beast, so he must do something. The reason he's acting so cool is because of the damage reduction he'll gain from receiving attacks. Thanks to such talk, waifu is impressed by his bravery. Even the cute Zru thinks he is someone so admirable. Her brother, who was Fang, asks her since when she started speaking well of others. She doesn't respond at all and tells everyone if they're going to hide like cowards while Chen fights alone. The others agree and shout that it's time to show what they're made of. We see how all the boys join the fray. Without further delay, the battle begins, and we see how Tito Cheng uses the Tortle Shield to block the wolves' attacks. Pang and Zru help him eliminate them with their pets. The others don't lag behind either. Chung was aware that the horde was dwindling, but there were still plenty left, and it wasn't time to rest. Liang takes him by the shoulder and tells him he has done enough, and to leave the rest to them. Our protagonist refuses, because if he keeps staying behind, how will he become stronger? She understood how he felt, and simply told him to go together. He says, "Ceasus," and they fiercely charge at the beasts to deliver the final blow. 3 Doritos later, we see they managed to take down the pack, and Chung is very happy because he gained a 20% damage reduction thanks to the hits he received. Lee notices he is very tired and covered in wounds, and with a warm smile, asks him not to overdo it, to drink this to relieve his body's pain, and to see it as a form of gratitude for saving her. Tito Cheng, curious, asks what it is. Fang tells him he's stupid or what, that it's a very expensive potion, and that he should dedicate his life to her. His sister Refua yells at him to shut up and stop joking around. Chung thanks her for it and knows he needs to drink it, because otherwise he wouldn't be able to walk. Captain Jing congratulates them on their excellent work and mentions that Liang will lead the patrol team. Fang asks if he won't be giving them orders anymore. Tito Jing says, "Ceasus," but that he simply thinks it's better for them to have a leader among themselves. Suddenly, everyone hears a deafening roar. Captain Jing asks them not to get nervous, saying it's just other captains fighting. Tito Cheng, who wasn't stupid, knew he was just trying to calm the situation, but it was pointless because the roars didn't stop at all. In the distance, they see a fierce battle between some captains and a massive snow gorilla. The imposing beast ends up taking one of them down. Captain Jin gets nervous because that fierce-grade beast meant a monstrous tide was approaching. Chung quickly checks the beast's stats and is greatly surprised. It's level 40, but, above all, an elemental ice-type monster, which he knows is absolute madness. Captain Jin knows the situation has become extremely dangerous and tells the kids that practice is over. They need to return to the wall immediately. Our protagonist knew this wasn't the time to be frugal, so he quickly drinks the potion. A few seconds later, it takes effect, and he feels much better as his fatigue and wounds disappear. He quickly asks the captain which route they will take. He tells them the main one, but they need to get there as quickly as possible. He gives a loud whistle, and his crimson lion appears, ready to go. Captain Jing orders them to follow him. Of course, all the kids obey. And as they run toward the wall, the system informs Cheng that he unlocked a new ability called Counter Barrier, which forces the target to attack the user, granting 70% protection against physical damage and, if that weren't enough, it can return 50% of the target's attack. Chung knew this was fabulous because it not only provided protection but also damage, though it had a condition for use. Suddenly, some wolves block their path. The imposing crimson lion ferociously pounces on them. The captain tells the kids not to stop as his beast will handle them. Liang asks why the monsters are no longer hiding their presence. Chung mentions that, as the captain said, there's a powerful monster behind this, and even near the wall, the situation couldn't be good either. F tells them they still have time to get there because it's only been 20 minutes since the snow gorilla roared, and he doesn't think the entire monstrous tide has fully formed yet. So they should take this opportunity to take shelter behind the wall. Captain Jin knows the kids are scared and reassures them, promising to protect them. But he's aware that this isn't a simple monstrous tide. Indeed, his intuition is correct, as a horde of insects is already attacking the wall, accompanied by a pack of wolves and snow leopards. All those monsters are heading toward the wall's entrance to break through and destroy the city. Returning to the kids, Liang asks the captain what they'll do now, since it would be impossible for them to get through all that. Captain Jin knows this is a complete disaster, but cannot show weakness to these kids. He toughens up and shouts that they shouldn't worry, as his lion's flames can handle several monsters, though it won't last long. That's why they need to act quickly, get to the gate, and follow him closely as he clears the way. We see how he gradually unleashes his forbidden moves. But there are too many monsters, and they begin to surround them. The kids know they can't leave everything to the captain, so they use their magical beasts to provide support. Together, they slowly carve out a safe path while fighting. Captain Jin, seeing the gate just a few meters ahead, shouts for them not to stop. But as all of this was happening, we see that the snow gorilla had already arrived. It grabbed two enormous rocks and hurled them at the gate to destroy it. The guards on top of the wall started attacking it, but it was useless. To the imposing creature, it felt like mere tickles. Unfortunately for the guards, Commander Wang finally made his entrance. Like a true warrior, he fiercely lunged at the imposing creature and effortlessly cut off one of its arms. However, that didn't matter, my king, because the snow gorilla was incredibly overpowered, regenerating its arm in just a few seconds. Suddenly, we see the group arriving with Captain Jin. The latter asked his lord why he came personally. Commander Wang ordered him to cut the chatter and mentioned that he had commanded the guards to launch some ropes. Jin's duty was to provide cover for the students so they could climb up the wall. Captain Jin replied that he understood and would not disappoint him. Without further ado, the students began climbing the wall little by little. Returning to the fight, we see the snow gorilla ready for action, preparing to take down Commander Wang for injuring it. But suddenly, Wang's magical beast joined the fray, a powerful white tiger. The feline delivered a massive punch straight to the face of the enormous primate, sending it flying. Tito Chen noticed that the commander's beast was stronger than the gorilla because it surpassed it by 10 levels. And indeed, this was true because the tiger was delivering a brutal beating to the snow gorilla. Meanwhile, we see that the students successfully climbed up the wall. However, they suddenly sensed a massive amount of mana heading toward the gorilla, which entered a berserker mode. The students were aware this was very bad, and the creature helping the gorilla was a huge ice wolf. The wolf leaped ferociously at the tiger. Of course, the tiger didn't back down and was ready to counterattack, but it was all a trick, as the wolf evaded the attack at the last second and quickly headed toward the wall, beginning to climb it. Obviously, the tiger wouldn't allow it and followed immediately, but was unfortunately attacked by the imposing primate. Thanks to this, the wolf managed to climb up without issues and began taking down countless people. Commander Wang knew there was no chance against these creatures. His duty was to protect the children. Returning to the students, we see Lian with teary eyes, telling our protagonist that they had to flee. Tito Chen knew this wasn't possible because if they tried, the wolf would attack them from behind. Someone had to distract it so the others could escape. Like a true alpha male, he shouted, "Come here, wolf!" and quickly activated his new skill, Absolute Defense. The ferocious creature couldn't tolerate such disrespect and went to devour him. But unfortunately for the wolf, it was struck and thrown to the side. Our protagonist wasn't unscathed. His companions were terrified to see him badly injured. Chen shouted at them to flee and not to worry, promising he would survive no matter the cost. Zru trusted him and told his brother and Along they had to leave so they wouldn't get in his way. The waifu obeyed, though her eyes were filled with worry. Returning to the wolf, we see it was paralyzed for 5 seconds thanks to the protagonist's ability. The guards weren't ignoring him. They were just focused on annihilating the swarm of flying insects. The ferocious creature returned to normal, activated its berserker mode, and showed its might with a great roar, scaring Torture. Tito Cheng reassured him not to fear because he would always be by his side. Torture gained courage and, of course, helped his leader. Our protagonist knew the only way to survive was with absolute defense, so he used it until his body collapsed. Despite blocking the attacks and slightly damaging the ice wolf, he was getting more injured. He managed to stand up quickly before the paralyzing effect ended. Returning to Commander Wang, we see his white tiger cornering the enormous primate, creating an opportunity for Wang to inflict fatal wounds on the ferocious creature. The feline didn't hold back either, unleashing a powerful ice beam. The monster screamed in unbearable pain, and Commander Wang, without the slightest hesitation, delivered the finishing blow. The guards, who had finished their fight, cheered, calling him the best. While the fools celebrated, our protagonist was being brutally beaten. The wolf noticed its companion had been taken down, which made it furious. The ice on its back started forming a kind of armor. Tired of the games, it was ready to devour its prey. Torture knew his master was exhausted and would not let anything harm him. Like a true warrior, he stood his ground, and indeed, he managed to knock the wolf against the wall with his powerful block. But unfortunately, neither he nor his master had any strength left to stand. Our protagonist knew they were done for. The wolf knew it too and lunged at them, ferociously to take him down. But to his bad luck, the cavalry arrives, and it was an old man, along with an imposing lion, Lightning. He tells his companion to unleash the thunder tornado. The feline, of course, obeys, and with a simple strike, he takes down the puppy Tito. Chen is left stunned by such destructive power, although he was annoyed because it felt like a movie, and he almost ended up meeting St. Peter. The system informs him that he has a notification. Chen, who was utterly exhausted, decides not to read it and leaves it for later. A few minutes later, dawn finally breaks, and the old man notices that the monsters are finally retreating because their two war chiefs had fallen. However, something else caught his attention. It was the boy's beast. Despite being ornamental rank, it withstood the attacks of a ferocious rank monster, which means it is stronger than it seems, or unlocked a special ability through battle. Returning to Tito Chen, we see that the boys went to check on him. The brothers, extremely worried, hug him. All of them apologize for not being able to help him. Our protagonist asks them to calm down, saying he's fine, just very tired and slightly injured. Lee, very serious, mentions calling a doctor. The old man finally appears, revealing himself as a general named Chunan. He tells Leon that it's unnecessary as he stands before the protagonist and looks at him intently for a few seconds. Without further ado, he hands him a potion, ordering him to drink it immediately to feel much better. Tito Chen thanks him wholeheartedly. His biggest fan, who was an expert in potions, tells him he is incredibly lucky because it's the newest on the market and extremely expensive. His sister, tired of his rambling, hits him to make him stop talking. Chen drinks it completely and feels fabulous in just 5 seconds. Suddenly, General Chunan asks Chen if he would like to become a warrior to protect the northern walls. The guards, overhearing this, shout that he's incredibly lucky to receive a personal invitation from the general. His friends also tell him it's a unique opportunity. Our protagonist agrees but says he's not yet strong enough to defeat monsters, even if he has absolute defense. Respectfully, he declines the general's invitation for now. A bit annoyed, Chunan says that's fine and quickly leaves, visibly affected by being rejected. He begins taking down the remaining monsters to release his anger. Once calmer, he asks Lan about the extent of the monster tide damage. Lan mentions that compared to previous ones, it was relatively low, but without the young man and his spiritual turtle, there would have been many more losses. General Chunan agrees, saying the young man has promising talent. He even tried to recruit him into his troops, but the boy refused. Commander Wang mentions that he must be special to attract such attention. Chunan says that's obvious because, at first glance, anyone would think his turtle was decorative, but it withstood simultaneous attacks from an ice beast of ferocious rank. He sees another rising star, which is a good thing because, as they know, the frequency of monster tides has been increasing, and talented young warriors would be a great help. Returning to the brothers, they ask the protagonist how it's possible he rejected such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Liang agrees because even his family holds great respect for General Chunan and thinks his decision was hasty, suggesting he still has time to change his mind. Tito Chen mentions he believes both he and his turtle are not yet at the level needed to withstand such a harsh environment. Suddenly, Captain Jing appears, concerned, and asks if they are okay. They say yes. Fan, acting crazy, shouts at him, asking if he's wandering while others work. Zru, of course, silences him. The captain clarifies he wasn't wandering, but had already finished. Later, we see several generals and commanders gathered, discussing the sudden increase in monsters. They are aware of their duty to prevent these creatures from breaching the walls, even if it costs their lives. Meanwhile, Commander Wang mentions that over 300 lives perished, fighting valiantly to keep the people behind the walls safe. He notices their nervousness and shouts that this is war, and if they're not ready for it, they'd better leave now and go find their mommy. Finally, they head back to the academy. While the protagonist boards the bird, he becomes aware that at first he felt like a nobody and wasn't very interested in this world, but for some reason, he now feels the need to protect it. The following morning, we see him waking up with his adorable turtle and also having a breakfast of delicious instant noodles, which of course he loves because... Of course, he loved it because they were delicious, and he cast a grateful glance at his master Chain while eating. Reading the notification, he noticed that Tortu had already reached level 6 in just one day, which was fabulous, but he knew he needed to learn more about her. For this reason, he searched the library for books related to the spiritual turtle. But since her level was very low, there was little information available. He soon realized that the best way to level up was by facing monsters or pets of the same or higher level. Tito Shen knew he had made a mistake by rejecting General Shunan's offer because he could have learned a lot there. Suddenly, he noticed that Tortu took a sort of poster from the book, and upon reading it, he remarked that she was a genius. At nightfall, we see that Tito Shen was fully bundled up, and the reason for this was twofold. First, it was raining, and second, he was hiding Tortu because, in the city center, there were many pet thieves who sold them on the black market. The reason he went out at night was to visit the Adventurers Association, which was the ideal place to become stronger. It was full of formidable hunters, and he could take on missions to obtain valuable resources and make his beasts more powerful. We see that the receptionist there was a young woman named Nana, and she was very bored because only old men were around. However, she was surprised to see our protagonist, as she could tell he was such a young boy. He mentioned that he wanted to join the association, and she said, "Of course," asking for his identification. She took it and started registering him in the system, but was surprised to see that his pet was very beautiful, despite being level 6 and ornamental class. The men in the place, upon hearing this, began to laugh because they thought it was pathetic. Our protagonist didn't care. Nana asked him to show his pet. Without hesitation, Shen revealed Tortu, and she quickly began evaluating her. Since Tortu was in good condition, Nana asked him to sign there, and as soon as he did, she mentioned that he was now a member of the association. She handed him his badge and said that his code name would be Frost Shadow, and he could use it to access the website. Finally, she mentioned that he could take missions on that panel, but he should keep in mind that he could only take ones at the same level as his magical beast. Tito Shen, happy, told Tortu that from today, they would both become very powerful. A hooded man whispered that this was very interesting. Where we left off in the previous chapter, Tito Chen joined the Adventurers Association, and the reason was to train Tortu. He quickly picked a mission like a true worker, which consisted of protecting his client and escorting them to their destination. The next morning, we see him waiting in the city square, where he discovered that his boss was Linda Langa. However, she didn't know he was the protagonist because he was disguised. For some reason, he decided to keep his identity hidden. When the two met, she asked him to wait a moment because her friend was coming. Tito Shen noticed an imposing woman approaching, exuding a powerful aura. Suddenly, she hugged Lee, and it turned out she was her friend named Link. She told Lee that she hadn't mentioned wanting to work alone. Gufu explained that she hadn't because she wasn't strong enough, which was why she hired a companion. Furious, Link shouted if he was reliable. Leon responded that he was because he was from the Adventurers Association. Link complained, questioning whether he was strong enough for her. Leon, knowing she was very stubborn, said yes, and that she only wanted more security. Link eventually agreed and asked what his code name was. Our protagonist mentioned it was Frost. Without further delay, she introduced herself and commented that they were heading to the Northwest District. Tito Shen said he understood. After a while, we see that the guard watching the port let them through without issue because he was friends with Link. After walking for a while, Leon commented that their destination was the military camp at the edge of the forest. They agreed, and Link, curious, asked the protagonist how skilled he was. He didn't answer, instead mentioning that something was approaching. The Vifu also noticed it. Suddenly, a group of rats emerges from the ground. Ling, without hesitation, says that she will handle this, and we see how she summons her magical beast from a bracelet. Tito Zen knew that bracelet was very expensive, but great because it not only stored her pet, but also helped evolve and heal its wounds. He promises that in the future, he will have the beast. The beast of Yu was a boxer kangaroo of fierce class and bronze level, and we see that it was very strong because with a single blow, it knocks down the rats literally. Ling, super proud of herself, yells to Leon, asking if she isn't trustworthy. Ifu answers yes, but asks her to stop acting like a child. Ling doesn't pay attention and tells the protagonist that it's good because he detected the monsters before her, although if she had detected them later, she would have defeated them. She tells her friend that with her, it's enough, and she's just wasting money. While they argue, Shen hears a loud noise in the distance. Ling also hears it, excited, and shouts for them to all go together to see it, running quickly towards it. Ifu knew that she was practically a child because she does whatever she wants. They finally arrive at the location and discover that the sound was from a group of blood moles eating a huge python. Although they were low-level due to their yellow spots, Ling ignores the plan and rushes to fight. This, of course, puts Ifu at risk, and we see the imposing kangaroo start to beat up the moles. The monsters, frightened, begin to run away. Ling wouldn't allow that and starts chasing them to defeat them. Ifu mentions to the protagonist that they must catch up with her before she enters restricted territory, but it was too late because there was a warning posted on a tree. After a while, they end up losing Tito. Shen mentions to Ifu that the best option is to leave this zone because it's too dangerous, and they're not familiar with the area. He's sure Ling is fine because she's very strong. Leon refuses because she's very worried about her friend. Shen mentions that he understands her concern, but his job is to protect her and take her to her destination. She tells him she understands, but asks him not to call or send a message to inform her. However, when she looks at her phone, she realizes there's no signal and starts praying for such bad luck. While she walks, worried, we see Ling enjoying herself fighting and coming back with the boys. Just as they were about to leave, they are suddenly attacked by a huge snake. Tito Shen quickly summons Tortu and activates his absolute defense, barely managing to block the fierce creature's attack. As we all know, this ability deals 50% damage to the beast and paralyzes it for 5 seconds. The system notifies the protagonist that he has obtained 100 resistance to poison. Tito Shen knew that the venom was dangerous and shouts to Leon that they need to leave immediately, because if not, they will be in serious trouble, and the snake will poison them. She obeys, and they start running. But while running, she realizes it was Tortu, which meant that this boy was Shen. She wonders why he hides his identity, but knows he must have a good reason for it. A few minutes later, she asks him to wait a moment because she needs to rest. He says that's not possible because the snake will catch up with them, but he can try to merge with his pet and use its power to resist and run a little faster. She thanks him for the idea and quickly asks for strength from Kana. He, of course, agrees. They continue running towards the exit of the forest. But to their bad luck, they encounter the imposing snake again. The snake definitely wouldn't lose its delicious food. Shen, undeterred, faces the beast like a true alpha male and blocks its attack with his absolute defense. Unfortunately, the creature ends up poisoning Tortu. As they are one, he also gets poisoned. To make matters worse, an eagle also joins the fight. Tito Shen knew that if they stayed there, they would be in serious trouble. So he grabs Ifu's hand and tries to flee as quickly as possible while running for their lives. Leon realizes she finally has signal and tries to contact Ling, but can't do so because the huge snake won't stop chasing them until it devours them. Shen yells to Leon to run and not worry, that he would buy some time, and begins a fierce battle against the imposing creature. She, scared, yells for him to be careful, as the eagle also joins the fight. Fortunately, the protagonist manages to block the attack at the last second, and thanks to that, The bird falls to the ground due to the stun. Returning to Tito, we see he was applying the forbidden steps and giving the huge creature a tremendous beating until finally it couldn't get back up. Tito Shen knew that at this rate he would fall because Tortu couldn't take it anymore, just like him. But fortunately, Leon says she's done and will lend a hand. We see how she ferociously attacks the reptile and, with her claws, injures the creature's eye. Shen yells for Tortu to put up a shield to protect them from the venom. He obviously does what his boss commands. We see Lian take advantage of the fact that the snake was stunned, and with her lethal claws, she delivers the killing blow. In the process, our protagonist, exhausted, collapses on the ground and knows that he needs to stop the venom at any cost. Unfortunately, he has no antidote. However, blessed by Ifu, who was super nice, she gives him a potion. Tito Shen thanks her from the bottom of his heart and takes it secretly so she won't recognize him. In a few seconds, his body already feels lighter. Leon sits beside him and asks why he hides his identity. Besides, with his strength, she's sure he'd make more money at the front lines than doing missions. Tito Shen is surprised because he knew who she was and says that, of course, how could he not recognize Tortu and her way of fighting? Our protagonist says he's fine and mentions that maybe he will consider the army in the future, but for now, he wants to explore the world and make some money. She tells him that's fabulous and thanks him again for saving her. She also comments that if he sells the snake, he'll make a lot of money because luxury materials can be extracted from its body. He thanks for the information and, in his magic backpack, absorbs the enormous reptile. They suddenly sense a powerful aura approaching, and he thinks back to the previous chapter. We see that Tito Chen was keeping the body of the enormous serpent in his dimensional bag because he would make a lot of money selling it. But suddenly, they sense a powerful aura approaching, and he thinks it's a fierce creature. But it was nothing like that. It was Ling with her angry Kambaru. Ifu, irritated, mentions that this time she almost died. Link, worried, asks what happened. I comments that suddenly an enormous serpent and an eagle attacked them, but fortunately they managed to defeat them. Leanda, hearing this, apologizes from the bottom of her heart and promises not to act alone anymore and prioritize her safety. Ifu mentions that she always says the same thing but never keeps her word. Link, with tears in her eyes, cries out that she swears, but please don't tell Tai Zielshen anything. He is perplexed upon hearing this name and says that he won't tell her father, but with one condition. She must obey Shadow Frost's orders. Link clearly doesn't like this at all and, irritated, asks if this boy is stronger than her. Elle responds that no, but if it weren't for him, she would have died. Ifu doesn't believe that, but then she agrees and tells the protagonist that if he faces any danger, she'll lend him her strength. He says it's fine, and without further delay, mentions that it's time to leave. After some time, Shen was aware that Lian belonged to a noble family, but didn't imagine it was such a famous one, since her father is one of the 12 generals named Zul, and with his extraordinary crystal-level spirit beast, the Great Monkey, he makes monsters fear him. At the true end, it's no wonder, as General Shunan personally came to save them. Li tells her cousin that her father is very strict and allowed her to go alone to the military field, even though the area wasn't so dangerous, but still a bit hostile. Thinking about it, her father is the same since he sent her too, even though she was more than qualified, and that's why she had to leave her home, her games, and anime. Anne mentions that it's her fault for staying at home doing nothing since there's only a year left until the War of Allies, the biggest event that tests strength. That's why it's natural her father sent her on this mission to make her stronger. She says no because there's no real danger, so she won't improve. Ian says that's the case for her, but not for Leon, so her father sent her abroad to prepare her, and here, when she joins the army, it'll be easier. Returning to Tito Shen, we see that the system informs him that he is still poisoned. The curious one asks how it's possible since he took a potion. It mentions that sometimes antidotes aren't effective. Shen knew this was very dangerous and needed to hurry to reach the field before it worsened. While they were walking calmly, Ling eliminated monsters with ease. After a few hours, they finally reached the destination. Our protagonist was impressed with the place, as it was as imposing as the Murala. A man tells him that he has a good eye and comments that the Alliance provides its best first-level equipment depending on the level of danger. The man cordially greets Leon and reveals that he is her uncle, named Lin, and Link's father. As a knight, he mentions they must be tired and asks them to rest, even though the campaign isn't so pretty inside. Ai Fu tells her uncle not to worry because she's fine. He thanks her and mentions that her father has excellent judgment about her. He comments to his daughter that it must have been hard to leave home. She is perplexed by what he said and asks him to follow her outside. While they talk, we see Leon take a strange stone and tell Shen to take it because she's sure it will be very useful to him. Our protagonist knows that it's very valuable and thanks her for the gesture but cannot accept. She insists that he take it, as it's the least she can do for him since he saved her twice. Tito Chen thanks her from the bottom of his heart. This stone was very good because it could evolve into Tortu, but before that, he would need to reach the fierce class. Leon, curious, asks what he'll do now since he just finished his mission. She asks if he'll leave or stay and talk to her uncle. Shen thanks but declines, as he has many things to do. Ai Fu becomes sad because she wanted him to stay. Suddenly, Lin, beside Shen's father, thanks the protagonist for bringing the girls safely and mentions that his daughter said he was the reason they arrived so quickly. Curious, he asks for his name. Tito Shen introduces himself, and Len responds that he was simply fulfilling his duty. Without further ado, he says it was a pleasure, but that he must leave. Len then says that he will no longer bother him and wishes him a safe trip with the girls. He asks Liam how powerful this young man is, and she tells her uncle that he is very talented because, despite having a decorative beast, he managed to defeat a giant serpent. Len comments to the two that this is very surprising and terrifying because it means he has already transcended 2 realms. Returning to our protagonist, we see he was training hard, because on the way back to Morala, he was facing many low-level monsters. However, so focused on this, he forgot he was still poisoned. Either way, he had already advanced to the halfway point of the absolute defense level. As night was falling, he hurried to return home as the place would become more dangerous in a few hours. A few hours later, Shen was already at home and ordered the system to show his toxin resistance level. He noticed it was almost at 100% and wondered if he would gain a skill upon completion, as it happened last time with the absolute defense when he resisted physical damage. Thinking deeply, he ended up falling asleep. The next morning, he heads to the Adventurers Association, and as soon as he enters, he hears some little rats gossiping about him behind his back, saying he failed to complete Nana's mission. Realizing his presence, he greets them politely and asks how he can help. Tito Chen comments that he completed the mission and came to claim his reward. The little rats shout at him to stop showing off, but the receptionist pays no attention, checking the system and realizing it was true because the client gave 5 stars. She tells the protagonist that if he wishes, he can claim his reward or make sure with them, but there will be additional costs. Moreover, since he completed a mission above his current level, he could request a rank upgrade to A. And since the higher the level, the greater the benefits, of course. Shen accepts and mentions that he wants to sell some items. We see that as soon as he opens his dimensional bag, many monster corpses appear, shocking everyone with such madness, especially because among the bodies was a fierce-class serpent. Shen asks Nana to tell him how much he earned, and also wants to know more about the association's insurance. She tells him he earned about 800,000 Alliance coins and also received a rock beast horn from his employer. Regarding the insurance, he can store money or they take responsibility for any loss of his belongings. They store things, and if something gets lost, They are responsible. But of course, they take a commission for keeping things safe. Shen tells Nana that he will store his rock beast horn for a year and that she should deduct the payment. A few minutes later, she informs him that 780,000 coins have been deposited into his account. The protagonist thanks her and leaves. While walking, he still hears the little rats talking badly about him, but he doesn't care, and silences them with his performance. Finally, he arrives home and summons Tortu, noticing that he is very sleepy. Shen knew he had been working hard lately, and as soon as he places the black crystal on the table, he notices the adorable Tortu immediately stands up, apparently very interested. This surprises our protagonist, and the reason for this is that he was taught at school that usually mascots do not show interest in evolution materials, since their evolution is controlled by their owners. Therefore, they do not show interest. But apparently, the cute Tortu was the exception. Shen knew very little about this crystal and, intrigued, was about to call Lee to ask exactly what it was. But he remembers he doesn't have a contact number. Shen knew it was for evolution, but something must be hidden for Tortu to cause such a stir, and perhaps he had a unique trait, and the crystal unlocked something for him. Because of this, he takes him to a laboratory for beasts and asks the doctor if there is anything unusual. The doctor mentions that his pet is perfectly healthy, but unfortunately, according to the results, the beast hasn't awakened any attributes. Shen thanks him for the information, but is still a bit sad. However, he still loves Tortu very much. Even if it takes their entire lives, they would both become very strong. After a while, we see that Shen was researching on the internet if there was anything about the black crystal he had, but he found nothing. However, he knew that thing held secrets, and he would investigate what it was later. What was more important at the moment was knowing how to evolve Tortu. He found a well-known forum that mentioned that for a spiritual turtle to evolve, it needed to meet certain requirements: the ability to heal itself, a defense skill, and a wood attribute elixir. The best in this case were the ice crystal plant, or the Buing plant, but both were extremely expensive, costing around 100 million. Obviously, Shen didn't have that kind of money, so he looked for cheaper elixirs. While researching, he found a recent forum that mentioned that in the northern district, it was very rare to find snow jade. Shen knew this was great because it had the ice, water, and wood attributes. It also provided the ability to regenerate amputated limbs. It was an extremely valuable material, much superior to his low-class rock horn, and if he found it, it would greatly improve Tortu. But to have it, he would have to go to the northern district, which reminded him of difficult moments. Already falling into the night, Shen goes to the association and realizes that to go to the northern district, he needs to be rank B. The only way to do the mission with his rank would be to join a group. Suddenly, he hears a hooded figure named Blacker offering others the opportunity to join him. Upon hearing this, he mentions that it wasn't a common mission, but one issued by the army. Clearly, they would earn many points and rewards. As they know, there are two types of points: ordinary points, which are obtained from low-level commissions and can be used to buy common items, and association points, which are obtained from advanced commissions and can be used to buy rare and powerful items. The guys, already terrified, scream, asking if he is crazy or doesn't know that in the northern district there are monstrous seas, and they leave angrily at such a foolish offer. Black Hod tries to convince someone to join him but walks away. Shen notices this and follows him. He was going to ask to join, but when noticing his presence, Black Hod gets irritated, stops, and screams, asking why he's following him. Our protagonist, without hesitation, mentions that he wants to join the group. He responds, saying that he's just a novice, and Tito Chen, not intimidated, shouts that he should prove his strength. Black Hod agrees, but to join he must withstand 3 of his strikes and summons his magical beast, a fire monkey named Dom Teet. Shen realizes that he is from the fierce class and level 35, and without delay, summons Tortu. The guy starts laughing when he sees him, asking why he wants to join him if he will end up getting hurt. As everyone knows, Tito Shen doesn't get intimidated and shouts that if he's afraid, he isn't. This infuriates Black Hod, who orders Donkey to attack. We see the huge fire monkey fiercely advancing towards him, but Tito Chen blocks it with his absolute defense, although he is surprised that he wasn't stunned. Black Hod orders Don to retreat and tells Shen that he doesn't know how his beast managed to withstand it, but he realizes he has some skills. However, he thinks it's best to end this once and for all and orders Dom to show what he's capable of. We see the huge primate disappear instantly from the protagonist's sight, and when he realizes it, the monkey is by his side. Shen barely manages to block, but in the process, his shield breaks, although he wasn't touched, which validates his block. Black Hod recognizes that his defense is very good, but still needs to withstand the last attack. He tells Don that it's time to show his most powerful attack. Shen, quickly, along with Tortu, assumes a defensive position, and we see the imposing primate running fiercely towards them while his hand exudes a powerful fire attack. The young men, like true warriors, prepare to resist, but the attack is so strong that an enormous explosion occurs. Some police officers notice and prepare to go there to stop the ruffians.